Well, good evening and welcome to the Arbor Hills Nature Preserve in Plano, Texas. Tonight's exercise is a field test of the THRUNITE BSS Black Scout Survival V5 flashlight. I want to thank THRUNITE for sending me this light and making the review possible. This is an 18650 based light. I like the light weight, the grip, texturing. I've carried it for almost exactly 2 weeks. Variety of pockets, holster, excellent two-way clip. Now I have average size hands, so you'll probably notice that this looks a little bit long for an EDC style of light, and that has a couple of implications. One is, no matter what grip you use, underhand or overhand, your hand stays comfortably away from this area. This gets very hot. I guarantee you, as soon as you go into turbo, you will feel the heat. The other implication is that there are two control switches, tail cap and side switch. So with average size or small hands, if you use an overhand grip like this, it's hard to get access with the same grip to that side switch. One thing you might consider, I've done this in the past with other lights, is grip so that the index finger makes contact with the tail cap. Have your clip in line with the side switch, then the fourth finger just rolls underneath the clip, and then the pinky finger naturally touches the side switch. So that's just something to think about in terms of how you might carry and deploy this light. Now the schedule for the rest of the evening, very same as most other reviews. In the next chapter I'm going to go over the basics of the UI, not everything, but I really want to spend some time showing you some things that are not in the manual and may not be obvious, and that may affect your ultimate purchase decision. Then after that, I'll get to what everybody is looking for, lots and lots of beam shots under realistic circumstances. And yes, we will take a look at these way cool accessories, including the red filter and the screw-on strike bezel. I have my headlamp on a low flood so you can see what I'm doing. Output levels are Firefly, low, medium, high, turbo, and strobe. Tail cap operation controls turbo only, on, off, momentary. So half press in, then release, there's turbo, or you can click. Notice I've released here. If you want to maintain turbo, click to turn off. Side switch. Press and hold, activates Firefly. Click to turn off. Click to turn back on. We're in the last mode that we were in. There's memory for the basic cycle, which is low, medium, high. Press and hold to cycle through low, medium, high, low, medium, high, low, release for whatever mode you want, or you can press, hold, and then release to advance one at a time. Click to turn off. From either on or off, double click takes you to turbo. Double click again just keeps you in turbo. Click to turn off. From either on or off, triple click to strobe. Click to turn off. Now, I want to show you a couple things. Turn it on, I'm in low. Notice I go back to the tail cap switch. If I activate turbo, I'm using momentary. Now, I let go, the light has turned off. It doesn't make any difference whether you're doing momentary or click. If you turn on to go into a mode, use the tail cap switch to go into turbo, turn off, your light is off. Now, suppose I turn on the tail cap switch, I'm in turbo. Notice that I'm pressing and holding. I'm double clicking. I've lost all control of the light through the side switch. Once I activate turbo through the tail cap switch, I have to turn it off, then go back to the side switch and turn on. You might want to think about that before you click the add to cart button. So quick question, is there any way that I can go to turbo and then go from turbo back to the primary mode, low, medium, or high that I was in? So while the light is on, it doesn't make any difference whether it's on or off. I double click to go to turbo. Now watch this. Press and hold takes me back to that memory mode. I keep pressing and holding, it cycles through low, medium, and high. None of that is in the user's guide. I wanted to show it to you. It may or may not affect your buying decision. There is, of course, electronic lockout. I'm not going to cover that here, take up too much video time. I've tried that. It does work exactly as described in the user's guide. So let's go see what these basic low, medium, high, and turbo modes look like. And here we are at the bridge where I normally do output level tests, running in low. There's medium. Maximum line of sight, if I get right over here, is about 35, 38 yards, maybe 40. High. And let's see if I can get this. Double click, there's everybody's favorite turbo. This is a test I like to run with any light that kind of sort of fits in that EDC style category, which seems to be getting larger every single day. And that is just a very simple close proximity ground search. It's just getting dark. We're here at the playground. There's lots of light around me, but not enough to light up the ground right in front of me. So let me bring the THRUNITE in on low. You might consider this as a scenario where your kids were playing out here earlier, somebody dropped something, now you have to come back and search for it, and low definitely seems to be getting the job done. So this is going to kick off our practical testing for tonight. This is another test I like to run, just basic path following. So you're out hiking late in the afternoon, you got jammed up, lost track of the time, it got dark on your way back. This is the only light you have other than maybe a cell phone. What's the lowest mode that you can adequately follow a groomed path? I'm in medium right now. You need two things. You need good downrange because you need to see the general slope of the terrain, which I can already tell is right to left. I need to see rocks in front of me well before I might step on them. And of course you can see these grooves that have been cut by rainwash. I don't want to trip on those. So I've got more than enough downrange to be able to follow this path. And I've got, I would say, adequate side-to-side situational awareness. I'd say medium makes a reasonably good mode for this type of activity. Here is our second look in medium. Line of sight about 35 yards. We're at the entrance to the outer loop trail, and in this view looking back over a creek area. Let me pan around to the right. About 23 yards roughly to that sign. And our first look in high. I've always thought that if you have a light with multiple output levels. Medium and high should be the modes that you look at the most often. As we go out to the far edge of this tree line, it slopes away from me to the left a little bit over a football field in length. I can just barely make that out. This is a relatively low candela light, so it's not going to be a thrower. You can see it's lighting up a fairly wide area. You should also understand that the high mode has a ramp down along with turbo. I believe it's 145 seconds for high, 120 seconds for turbo, and the steady state for both modes is roughly 610 lumens. So a little bit closer distance there, and we'll finish off this segment in high. Well, you don't see these very often this far out in the open. This is rather unusual. This is my headlamp, by the way. I've got my headlamp on in 2000 lumen spot to show you this next test area. The gap between the trees goes out. The end of the gap is about 90 yards. Then there's a second tree line off in the distance that you can barely see with the headlamp, and that's in excess of 175 yards. So let me get the headlamp off. And there is the BSS V5 in turbo. This is our first look in turbo. I would say the view is roughly comparable. I think you get a wider field of view. You can't see that with the iPhone, but a wider field of view from the BSS V5. In terms of what I can light up at distance, they look to be about the same. And boy, am I feeling the heat. Woo! I let the light cool down and we are back in turbo. This is a burn down test, so let me pan around here. I'm just going to let it run, and I am holding the light well towards the tail end, definitely back of middle. Yeah, I can definitely see the linear ramping down. And I am now starting to feel some heat towards the middle back portion of the light. Not uncomfortable by any means, but I am feeling some heat. I don't even want to touch the head area of the light. Okay, we're over 2 minutes, so theoretically under lab conditions, this should be the steady state. course, it's a bit on the warm and humid side tonight, so take that into consideration. I can definitely tell it's regulated a lot because I can move my fingers up now towards the head area of the light, and while there is heat, it's not as bad as I was feeling in the last test. So I think I'm going to go ahead and shut it down here, let it cool down. We'll run some more tests. Well, this is an unusual angle to film, but it's very windy tonight. I've only got two hands and I don't want to lose my map. This is the screw-in red attachment. Just perfect on low for map reading. Actually, I think medium would probably be a little bit too much. Yeah, like way too much. But if you were really trying to go low profile and you had a well-groomed path, you wanted to try and preserve some of your night vision, I'll have to talk about scotoptic vision and colored lights in another video, but that's what medium looks like. More than enough to get the job done. This is what the strike bezel looks like. These attachments screw on, screw off, so easy even I can do it. So let me get my headlamp off and we'll look at the output with this attachment on in high. So you can see it does affect the spill of the beam, but in this type of environment, you can see as you go down range, it's not that big a deal if you're looking at relatively confined, groomed areas like this. All right, well, I'm going to make my way back to the parking lot area. We'll run a couple more tests and then call it a night. Strike bezel has been removed. I have my headlamp on and 400 lumen flood. This simulates the floody output of a lot of hiking headlamps that are available in sporting goods stores. So here's a situation of my night hike. Let's say I caught just a bit of eye shine in that direction, but this is the maximum output of my headlamp. How does high with the BSS V5 work in tandem with this headlamp? And there we have it. So I'd say inside 50, maybe 75 yards, this would be in high mode a very good companion to a typical floody hiking headlamp. Here is one last look in high. Maximum line of sight is 55, 58 yards. Pan around a bit. I don't normally do this, but just for fun, this is Firefly mode. From off, you just press and hold the side switch, and that will take you direct to Firefly. Back to the parking lot, actually the picnic area. Again, there is lighting all around me, but not enough for these dark areas. So let me bring the BSS V5 in medium. And we'll just walk around and then finish this eval off. My basic belief is pretty simple. You can view a website, look at the specs, the feature list, the price. You need to match the UI to your personal preferences and use cases. If you get past all of that, once you put a light in a test environment, realistic circumstances, it ought to be able to sell itself. My job is actually pretty simple. I've said this before. I run the test, you make the decision. Now, in my initial research, I did uncover some commentary about switch reliability. All I can say in the last couple of weeks is that I've hit that tail cap switch about 50, 60 times. That's not a stress test. If that's something you'd like to see me continue, if you would like me to do additional testing in another environment, if you'd like to see comparisons, leave a comment. I will see what I can do. And as always, until the next review, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for watching the video.